Hi, this is Dean with Riverside Survival Supply. This is William. Tonight, we're going to talk to you about something that we often have a lot of fun talking about ourselves, both with our friend group, just whether it be around a campfire or
We were even talking about it at the campfire last night.
Yeah.
With a bunch of strangers.
We'll talk about this stuff with anybody because it's fun. And that is American mythology, horror, and just stories like that in general. Generally, when we're talking about it, it doesn't specifically stay here in the U.S., but for tonight, our focus is specifically mythologies and horrors that come within our own borders. Now, that is not specifically just the U.S. We are going to hit, North America and maybe Middle America, things that can get to us from where we are. If it can't reach us, we don't like it.
Yeah. If it can't reach us, we'll talk about it some other time.
And if this is popular, if people like hearing us talk about stuff like this, we are more than happy to revisit it because there are hundreds upon hundreds of stories just in the U.S. on its own, let alone the entirety of North America that we can talk about, plus bringing in stuff from overseas, which is just really cool.
Yeah.
Or on the seven seas themselves.
But not tonight.
Not tonight. Tonight,
the West.
exactly. We like the West. We're partial to the West.
And America in general.
Yeah.
The continental America.
Especially if the stuff that's coming from the continental America is cowboy age. But
We like our cowboys.
cowboys are cool.
Yes. But without further ado, I'll try the first run if you want.
What do you
Sure.
got for us tonight?
It was a different time and a different place. America was young. A family would load into a wagon drawn by a horse and make their way across the great American plains westward in search of a better future. And then one day, a child, usually, in that family would begin hearing noises, voices, things, drawing them out into the dark. Unsure of what to make of it, they'd talk to their parents, who would simply think it was just the child's imagination, normal childish behavior, move on, tell them not to worry about it. And then, one day, the child followed the noises and the voices. And they were never found. And it happened again, and again, and again. Not just to one family, but multiple. Children, adults. It didn't discriminate. They would just wander into the dark and disappear. To this very day, we have people who will just wander into the dark and never come back. That, my friends, is my favorite American horror story.
The stories without answers, it amplifies them a lot.
We never describe anything about the nature of what's going on here. They just wander up, and here's what's crazy, it's real, right? Like, listen to the stories of the 411. Like, we have people that literally, they just, without explanation, stand up, walk somewhere where they're not supposed to be. Many of them, for some reason, undress. And then they sit down and die. And we've seen this happen hundreds of times, thousands of times. Think about how many more times it happened unrecorded. Some lost child out in the great plains of the West. Disappeared, never to be found again. Gone. No trace. Just crazy. And it still happens. That's just, I love that story.
And it can happen to anybody. Children seem to be more susceptible in the stories.
Yeah, those stories it's usually
But
kids.
Um,
Kids But like in modern era, when we've recorded a lot more, people who are like weirdly, like very good, like they've done like a lot of stuff outdoors, and all of a sudden this happens to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the only one, it usually tends to be kids, inexperienced outdoorsmen, and hyper experienced outdoorsmen. But yeah, no, there's no explanation. There's no creature. We don't have a name to it. There's no face to it. It's just death by wilderness. And what always gets people is the fact that they, like, it's so, what's weird, so weird about it is they go somewhere other than where they were meant to be that was so clearly the wrong option.
Yeah.
You know? And there's a few stories that come to mind. Like, there was one, it was a little girl. This wasn't even all that long ago. I forget the details, but it's this little girl, and she's with her sister, and she's with her mother, and her mother is out doing chores, and so leaves her and her sister under a tree that's not even 10 minutes from their house. Like, it's really close to their house, and these kids should know how to get back to the house. And the little sister wanders back to the house. The older sister goes to tell the mom, hey, sister went back to the house. They go back to the house, they can't find her. They go back to the tree, they can't find her. They search, they can't find her. 6 days they search for this girl. She's 6 miles away from where she should be. She's found on a cliff face that's difficult for her to climb on, and she apparently jumped off the cliff face after undressing. Or fell off the cliff face otherwise. And they ruled that the death was due to exposure. Oh, also, she wandered through bramble and thicket after taking off her shoes and socks. She neatly took them off and tucked the socks into the shoes, and then just wandered through bramble and thicket.
That's one of the weirdest things about those stories to me, is just how at peace they seem to be while they walk.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them. And that one's probably a poor example, because I have my own suspicions about that one.
Yeah.
But there's another one. It was a little boy, and it was fairly cold outside, if I remember correctly, but he wandered off the path in the wrong direction, clearly off the path, clearly the wrong direction, took off his clothes and died. I mean, there's just a weird number of these people who just, the weird part is they all tend to undress.
Huh. And that makes me wonder, because there's a story...
And they fold their clothes, too. A lot of them, like, fold their clothes neatly.
Because there's something that I almost thought might fit this bill as well.
Yeah.
But as kind of a case that the spell can be broken, whatever it is.
Sure.
This is local to Missouri itself.
Okay.
There was a young man, college age, I don't know about how old. This is at a big event too. He's not alone. Like there's a group of people. They're outdoors, fairly middle of nowhere, but decent roads and everything close by. And he kind of wanders off from the group a little bit, and it's a fairly cold night. It's mid to late October. Winter's starting to set in. Fall is at its peak. Takes his jacket off, hooks it up on like the rear view mirror of a car. Okay. It's pretty neat, but it's not folded like that.
Yeah, I mean, when it's folded, these people are in the woods, right?
Right.
So there's nowhere to set it or hang it or something. But
like there were
basically what it is. What's odd about it is the amount of care that goes into. They don't just like throw them off.
Yeah.
Literally, it's just
it
folded.
was taken off with some form of care.
Yeah, intentionality. Yeah, it proves intentionality, and it shows that there isn't it's not aggressive.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But this young man wanders further and further away from the group. It's almost pitch black out at this point. Luckily, the group that he was with was a lot smarter than other groups, or at least more aware. They kind of noticed after a little bit he was gone, went out looking for him, found him, I want to say, about 2-3 miles away from where they had set up.
Yeah.
Shoes were left about 1.5 miles back from where they found him.
Taking off the shoes is always odd.
Yeah. Like, everything else was still there, but his jacket and his shoes he had taken off.
Now, what's weird is shoes are, for most of these cases, shoes are the first thing to come off.
Huh.
Yeah. I always find that one out too. Because, like, the searchers, they'll find, if they do find these people, usually the first thing they find is their shoes. Usually neatly taken off, socks tucked into them.
Yeah.
And then later on, they'll find the rest of the clothes.
Because, I was told this story by a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And so I don't know all of the details specifically, but it fits oddly well. The young man that wandered off was not himself for another year.
Weird.
After they found him. He was nonverbal for the next, 3 days.
Huh. Yeah, it's so odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very odd. It's very odd. Yeah, I can't wait for the Whispers to come after me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to coin them the Whispers from here on in. Until someone has a better name for them, they're called the Whispers.
Well, there are some shows that have taken a similar name, Whispermen, and put it to a very similar entity. Cannot be seen, speaks to you, and lures you away.
Yeah, so we had a neighbor that needed some help packing up because he's had enough, and the Whispers were getting to him. So he figured it was best to leave, and we told him, yeah, get the hell out of here, dude. The Whispers will get you.
Luckily, we got this one out in time.
Yeah. You got a story for us, Dean?
Yeah.
Scare me, Dean.
So, this one is a little bit more explainable, I suppose.
Maybe.
But when you're exploring, you're bound to run into some interesting things. And he started his story off with the folks that were exploring the new world.
The West.
The West.
Where the cowboys are.
And where the cowboys should still be.
Amen.
But on those paths and in those destinations, you will find mountains. Mountains in and of themselves are treacherous. You have avalanches, you have snowfall, you have mudslides. Some folks believe that at least on some mountains that are at least steeper than 45 degrees, there's something to actually blame for all of those things. So if you're exploring mountains, and it seems a little more humid than you would think for a mountain, and you start to hear rumbling, don't run straight down, because you're probably dealing with a slide rock bolter. Slide rock bolters generally have skin of a similar color and almost texture, at least on the top, to that of the rocks in their area. Whether they build that up over time or have a chameleon-like what's the word I'm looking for? Ability to alter their appearance based on surroundings. That's not known, but what they do have is these really gross, weird tendrils with hooks at the end of them. And they'll dig them deep into the ground and into the roots of trees at the very tops of those mountains. They'll get covered by snow, mud, soot, and they'll wait for any form of prey to gather in a decent amount, either generally towards the middle of the mountain. And the reports of this generally come from people at the base of the mountain that kind of hear it, and they see unnatural tree fall. And when they get back up there to see if they can find the people they just saw walk up, they can't find them. It's because the slide rock bolter, when us hubristic humans decide to go up these should-be insurmountable mountains, they will unhook those talons, and using this disgusting, weird grease that they build while they wait for their prey, slide down the mountain, mouth agape, and swallow and destroy just about anything in their wake. And it looks and smells like a mudslide. If you've not been around a mudslide, it doesn't just smell like wet dirt. There's a lot to it, because there's all the dead animals and all of the weird creatures that they caught while they go down. And if you take into consideration if it was a slide rock boulder, smell's going to be fairly foul. But you cannot find whoever you just sent up that mountain. These things they'll act like whales, just going straight through their prey in a straight line, basically not even acknowledging that they were there, and just swallow them whole. And then they'll go sedentary, they'll wait for folks to walk around them, and they will slowly claw their way back up with the greasy, weird tendrils with their hooks, and do it again, whether or not they have to wait 30 minutes or 20 years before they get to slide back down.
I like to imagine they say "we" all the way down.
Honestly, I don't know if that would be scarier or make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know. I just thought it'd be a funny comment.
Because if there's a creature, like if you catch it and you see there's a creature barreling down at you, mouth agape, and you don't really have a direction you can go, and you just hear it going "wee."
Yeah.
At that point, it's almost sadistic.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you have to think there's some sentience to that thing, to the point where it has this twisted sense of humor.
And you got to think, like, if you're the person getting crushed by it, that last thought is, am I just getting crushed on this thing's, like, toboggan ride down the hill?
Right.
You know? Like,
right.
is it just having fun and I'm just like I'm so insignificant. I'm an accidental consequence of its enjoyment.
This creature is just a big fan of Cool Runnings.
Yeah,
and just bobsleds down. It just does not care about anything in its wake. It gets a pretty good meal probably once a year, especially when tourist season peaks, if there's still any left today. Now, it's believed they may now be extinct because the only one that has been actually seen...
Chuck Norris killed them all, that's why they're all gone.
You know, it could have been Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
I don't have the name of the man that killed it, but a man did kill one.
Oh, really? It was Chuck Norris.
We're going to go with it was Chuck Norris. And what
Chuck Norris did it.
And what Chuck Norris did was he cordoned off the mountain that he knew there was one, made sure that no folks could get in, and he built these scarecrows. Put in like some cow,
like dummies and stuff. Yeah.
He put in some like cow meat and like deer meat just in case it could smell it.
Yeah.
Kind of staggered them up the side of the mountain, not getting quite too high up yet. Make sure he didn't get caught. And he rigged them with dynamite.
Oh, you blew them up.
The remote detonation.
Yeah.
Like good old fashioned, like Wile E. Coyote push the button down. Had them all wired up, and just had one of the, like, just made a really loud noise, and like threw some stuff upwards at the very top scarecrow, and sprinted down. He heard the rumbling come down. This thing starts sliding down. He sees trees knocking down. About 30 seconds after he hears the rumbling, huge explosion. All that was left of what we believe to be maybe even the last slide rock boulder was hunks of flesh the size of an exploded whale.
Yum yum.
Yeah. I like to think that since Chuck Norris is the one that did this, obviously, I like to think that Chuck Norris ate really good that day.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, some of the meat was already seared.
Do you want to stay in the mountains? I got a story in the mountains.
Tell me another story about the mountains.
I lied, it's not actually in the mountains, it's beneath them.
Ah, even cooler.
Since the dawn of mankind, we found solace in caves. I have been in many caves. Caves are a wonderful thing. And there's something beautiful and profound about caves. But not so much about mines. When we dig greedily into the heart of the mountain, it really doesn't like that. Now, I really enjoyed Old Gods of the Appalachia's take on this particular kind of mythos. But the miners over the years came up with a number of mythologies about why the mines were so bad. But there are two stories in particular. In the one case in Pennsylvania, an incident with which many of us are aware, we created an actual straight-up hell pit, which is still burning. The wrath of the land against us. What a wild idea, right?
Ugh.
But the other one that I really like is, because I'm big on these like nature stories. The other one I really like is, you'll notice that people who spend too much time in the mines die of black lung. And when you look at the genetic lines from those folks, they tend not to make it as long. Like, it leaves such a mark that it passes down genetically. It's crazy, dude. And you gotta be wondering, like, why? Why is it that the coal, why is it that the mines are so vile? Why is it that caves aren't, you know? We've been finding solace in caves since dawn of man. But mines? What is it about mines?
Wrath of the earth for us taking its minerals?
Well, here's the thing too, it's not just coal, it's gold, it's the quicksilver, it's all of them, right?
Right.
When a man is down in the mines, he will just hear constant clanking of the pickaxes, of the tools, you know? We're in a cave, it's utter blackness. And it's that way in the mines too, but in a cave, it's quiet. You might hear the rush of wind, but you're not hearing the constant chunk, 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 chunk all day long, constantly.
Maybe trickling water.
In that
a
noise,
cave.
you start hearing shit. You start seeing shit in the dark, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if you've been absolutely black long enough, you start seeing things. A lot of those guys, they don't even have enough oxygen, you know? They're going down there praying, let me just see daylight again.
Right.
And the caves, like the mines themselves, have created these like crazy figures. We got these, you know, guys coming out that are literally like the idea of a crazy prospect, a crazy miner, you know, guys coming out that are just like, they're just done. They're just a husk, you know? They're coming out and they're just monstrous beings, you know? It's not like, this one isn't like a hard and fast mythos, there isn't like a creature in there, and there are some in American mythology, I'm sure, but I've always loved the stories around mines because there's just something about it that strikes, you know? I mean, even like in like Lord of the Rings, I know it's fiction, it's technically not in any continent, we're leaving America a little bit, but in Lord of the Rings, you know, they dug so greedily and so deep that there was a punishment, you know?
Yeah.
I've always found a lot of fun when the mythos is like, and in Old Gods of the Appalachia, the way that it works is basically there's this dark force that's under the mountain, and once we woke it up, it just started doing horrific stuff. So, and that is what woke up the horrible things that were in America, essentially.
Yeah.
That's kind of the mythos in Old Gods of the Appalachia. It's kind of sick, actually.
Interesting.
So once they get down deep enough, there are these creatures down there that are giving deals to these miners. And they're kind of acting like demons, but they give deals to the miners. And then there's always horrible side effects. But one of them gives a deal to a guy to get him out of the mines and then gives him unlimited powers. But at the tail end of the story, the whole town turns into a hollow man, and they burn.
Huh.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. But I love that. Because there's something about it that strikes right.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, when we dig too greedily and too deep, there's consequences, you know.
And speaking of that, there's a very real town that inspired in a very popular video game series that wreaked that same punishment.
Yeah, Pennsylvania. I was saying
Centralia,
that, yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Where we lit the 1,000 years fire, the fire that'll never go out.
Still burns to this day.
We don't know when it'll stop.
Estimations say that it has 4 years left, but they don't know for sure.
No, there's no way. There's no way there's only 4 years left, buddy.
I think it's gonna keep burning, but
I don't know if it'll ever stop, dude. I'm pretty sure it's like hell.
Yeah, I mean the fact that their main road, what used to be the main road, just is becoming a steep incline.
Yeah.
It's not like falling apart. It's just
sinking in.
Sinking.
Yeah.
And the fact that some of the folks that lived there when that mine exploded still live there, is insane.
Insane. I can't imagine the balls on those people just be sticking around.
Because there was a mass evacuation and some folks just refused to leave.
Yeah, it's insanity, dude. I can't even imagine. I mean, like, mad respect, but also I can't even imagine. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I'd be like, let's get the heck out of here, dude.
No,
At the same time, I'd love to go visit just to see what it's like.
I actually have a friend who I believe this October is going camping in Centralia.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm going to follow up with him actually after he gets back and talk to him about it. And if there's content to be made with his permission, I will either have him on or retell his stories for the podcast.
That'll be fun. Yeah.
If there's any stories to be told.
Speaking of the gates of hell, guess what we're 30 minutes from, buddy?
Stoll Graveyard?
The Stoll Cemetery, otherwise known as the Gate to Hell. Did any reading on that? Did you look into that at all?
Tertiary.
Dang near the center of the United States. Dang near. Just about. And a lot of weird things happened there. The chapel there burned down. A few stories around that. I don't want to go too deep. I feel like that's going to be its own episode later. But
that's fair.
Stoll Cemetery, Stull. Very wild. Kansas itself has a lot of really interesting stories, actually.
I mean, Stoll, being close to the center of the geographical center of the United States is actually Lebanon, Kansas.
Yeah.
Which has some crazy stories of its own.
And then in Kansas too, they've got the I'm forgetting the name of it, but that very famous bridge, the Widow's Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which there's a ghostly apparition that will like mess with you if you drive across that bridge at a certain time. I think it might be a certain day too, but it's like if you drive across that bridge, you're gonna get got.
There's like 1 week out of the year where it becomes very prominent.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we could do a whole episode on Kansas. Well, I want to do that later, but
yeah,
Kansas has a lot of its own. It's got a lot of its own cool ass stories. Now, I feel kind of ashamed because I just touched on mines and how cool they are and how many stories there are. I need to maybe give a little better story, like an actual story. Do you want an actual story?
Yeah, we can do an actual story on mines.
Okay. Well, no, actually, I don't got an actual mine story. I wasn't ready for mines. I just thought of that, and I was like, no, I got a different story that's actually I queued up, though. Yeah,
okay,
if you're willing for it.
No, go for it.
I feel like I'm commandeering a large chunk here, so I want to ask permission.
I know. See, I want to make sure that mine fit in. We're on a good train of thought right now. I don't want to derail it with something that's on a completely different spectrum.
Well, I do. Mine is kind of a jump, though, so...
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
Go ahead and jump, and then I'll jump with you.
So, 3 men go on an expedition. They're headed north. One last-ditch effort for a gold rush. America's flat run out of gold. We've harvested it all out of the ground. We've stripped everything that we can from the west. We've emptied every mine that we can in Central America, North America, up in the Kansas regions. There ain't nothing left. Out in the west, there ain't nothing left. Man can only seek his fortune north. So, 3 brothers head into the Canadian wilderness, wherein they come across some Native Americans who hand them some pretty good-sized gold chunks. And they say, yep, we got it from just up there. So they go, well, time to go find us some gold. So they head up further the river. And they investigate and they find some specks of gold. which this mission was more or less just to prove that there is gold up here. So they found the gold, so they're going back. 3 brothers head back to the nearest town, where they find another friend. New met friend, but a friend all the same. One of the brothers says, well, it's been fun, lads, but I gotta get back home. So he heads off. The other 2 brothers head up with the stranger back into this Native American land. The hunt for gold continues. The 3rd brother, now having finished his business, heads back up. I'm making this story more dramatic. If you know the story, I know I'm fudging some details here. Get over it. The 3rd brother heads back up. He knows where this camp is. He's going back to the camp. He finds that they've built a nice cabin, which has since been burned down. And he finds 2 bodies. One shot. Both missing their heads. And he finds, scratched into a piece of wood nearby, as his brothers were once to do, found gold. In the ruins, he finds his brother's journal, which has been disfigured beyond belief, unreadable. Naturally, he calls up the Canadian Mounted Police. Yes, this is late enough in history, they are police at this point, who show up and go, accident, bear attack, clearly. Gunshot wound, bears know how to do guns, dude. Bears, they found out guns, man. It's crazy. Your brother who was reaching for a gun is because there was a bear nearby, dude.
Joe Rogan was right. Bears are terrifying.
Bears are terrifying, yeah. They've learned guns. It's scary. But the brother's unsatisfied, so he talks to locals. And he goes, did you see that 3rd guy? Where's that 3rd guy? One of my brothers came up with, and nobody knows of him, nobody's heard of him, nobody knows where he is. But they do say, can you tell us more about those bodies? He goes, yeah, so, I'm pretty sure it's my 2 brothers, because there's 2 bodies. There's a 3rd guy who's a stranger, but 2 brothers are up there. One was shot, they're both missing their heads. And the Indians look at him and go, it wasn't the stranger that killed your brothers. He probably got it worse than your brothers. It was the wild men. Now, the Canadian wilderness has claimed many a man since then. And those weren't even the first. The wild men hunt those woods. Mostly men looking for gold, some for adventure. They don't really discriminate. If you're out there too long and they think you found them, they'll hunt you down. They'll kill you. And they'll take your head.
Some, if I'm recalling correct, believe that it could be local native tribes.
Well, the local native tribe was so helpful, though. And they're the ones who first told us about this other tribe. Actually, in their own tribe's history, they describe having ran across this tribe long, long ago. And when they came with a raiding party to take the tribe out, they just found an empty village, abandoned mere moments before they got there. And then that tribe just disappeared into the hills and have lived as these wild men ever since. Gives you some chills, man. It's kind of fun. I like the wild men. The wild men in particular are kind of fun for me because they're not a natural force that I can explain. Now, some of if you look at the individual stories and you really parse them out, you can kind of get it to an explanation point. But the actual, like when you look at the whole, it's really hard to make sense of it. Like if you disaggregate them, you can be like, yeah, well, it's probably the partner. But where'd he go?
Yeah.
And why'd nobody see him ever again? Right. And if it was that he found gold, why didn't we have some dude showing up with a bunch of gold and everybody go, wait a second, that's the guy?
Yeah.
You know? Or was it that the wild men have the gold and they defend it by killing everyone and chopping off their heads? That's much more fun. I believe that.
That 3rd man could have very well been the first one they got, as soon as he walked out that door.
Yeah, he may have been the one they may have dragged him away. He
Yeah.
may have been mining. They may have got him at some other location, and that's why his body wasn't found. But
Because he left early, right?
the third.
Was that the third, or was it the
third
brother
one's the
that
stranger.
left?
The stranger was the one whose body. Well, that's the thing. There's two bodies without heads. They don't know who's who.
Right.
Yeah. Could have been anybody.
Right.
Heck, it could have been the wild men. Those guys could have joined the wild man tribe. Who knows?
Yeah. Maybe they successfully killed 2 of them and got in.
No, but really, they probably got killed by the wild men.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no way they killed the wild men, dude.
With the little that we know about the wild men, the chances of you
Which
actually...
is that they're pretty much invisible and they kill everything on sight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. No, those dudes were boned before they even entered those woods and they were dead.
It would be nice to get an opportunity to learn what they use for, like, natural camouflage.
I had no idea.
Because, like...
But we won't find out because if you see him, you'll die.
Right.
Yeah, you're dead.
Hey, I can know for my own peace of mind, I guess.
Yeah. There was a good transition there that I missed, is the fact that it was still men in search of gold, right? They're
Yeah.
still in search of nature's bounty. So there's
Greed?
a little bit of a greed through line on those two stories.
Greed does tie in greatly to a lot of
See, that's what I
mythos.
like about the Whispers, though, because they just take anybody. They don't give a
Yeah.
fuck, dude. You can just be big chillin'.
And see that. Now, a personal favorite of mine, everybody knows about these. I'm not going to dwell on them too long. They have heavy ties to Native American groups. There might be one behind me, according to the weird noises we're hearing behind
I think
us.
there's a branch falling. I'm gonna hope.
Yeah, we're fingers crossed.
Hey, real quick.
Yeah.
Pause. There was a guy staring at us with nods for the last 30 minutes over there.